Ambassador Liuna sat perfectly still at the massive stone table while General Korthak of the Vorthok Empire moved closer to her. His reptile-like face showed nothing but hate and disgust. "Humans," he said with a low, angry voice that filled the huge room of the Galactic Council. "You always talk and talk, but you never fight. Your whole species makes me sick with how weak you are." The other beings around the table looked nervous and uncomfortable. The blue fish-like Aquarian delegates' breathing slits opened and closed rapidly. The crystal creature from Nexer made its natural light grow dimmer, trying to hide. Yuna kept her face calm and peaceful, but next to her, her helper Park Minsu was getting angry. His hands were tight fists. Yuna had worked as Earth's main speaker to other worlds for 15 long years. During all that time, she watched as humans became known across the galaxy as the people who tried to make peace instead of war. "General Korthak," she said in a steady, controlled voice. "We think real strength comes from knowing when to fight, not from fighting all the time." The general threw back his huge head and laughed loudly. The sound bounced off the walls of the chamber. Knowing when to fight, he brought his massive fist down hard on the table with a loud bang. "Weak creatures don't get to choose anything. My Vorthok people have taken over 18 different star systems because we understand what real power means. You humans understand nothing except how to give up and run away." Council Chairman Valtar sat quietly watching everything. He was a very old creature whose people had lived through the rise and fall of 3 different galactic civilizations. In all his thousands of years of life, he had seen many different species become powerful and then disappear. Humans confused him greatly. They were smart enough and had good enough technology to earn a seat on the council, but they seemed to hate violence and war completely. General Korthak stood up from his chair, making himself look even bigger and more threatening. His dark green scales caught the light from above. "Do you know what we call your kind on our home world, human? We call you soft shells. Creatures so weak that even our children could break you." Some of the other council members looked shocked at his rude words. The representative from the Helix Nebula made a small sound of disapproval, but others seemed interested, as if they wanted to see what would happen next. Park Minsu started to stand up, his face red with anger, but Yuna put a gentle hand on his arm to stop him. She had learned long ago that getting angry and shouting never solved anything in these meetings. "Perhaps," Yuna said calmly while writing notes on her electronic tablet, "we just think about strength in a different way than you do." This made General Korthak even more angry. His yellow eyes became narrow slits. "Different way. There is only one way to be strong, and that is to crush your enemies before they can hurt you. The Vorthok learned this truth thousands of years ago. We became the hunters instead of the hunted." He walked around the table slowly, like a predator circling its prey. "When we find a world we want, we take it. When we meet people who try to stop us, we destroy them. Simple and clean. No long talks, no begging, no weakness." The chairman Veltar finally spoke, his ancient voice sounding tired. "General, surely there are times when fighting is not the best answer to a problem. Only weak species think that way," Korthak replied quickly. "Strong species know that fear keeps the peace better than any words ever could. When others are afraid of you, they leave you alone." Yuna looked up from her tablet. "And how many innocent people have died because of this philosophy of yours? Innocent?" The general laughed again, but this time it sounded cruel and cold. "In war, there are only winners and losers. The dead chose to be on the losing side." Park Minsu could not stay quiet anymore. Those were families, children, people who just wanted to live peaceful lives. Then they should have been born into a stronger species, Korthak said, without any emotion, as if he was talking about the weather. The room became very quiet. Even the sounds of the air system seemed too loud. "Why?" Una closed her tablet and looked directly at the general. "We have tried for many years to show the galaxy that there is another way to live. A way where different species can work together and help each other instead of fighting. And look where it has gotten you, Korthak said with a nasty smile. Sitting here talking while real warriors take what they want. He moved back to his seat, but did not sit down. I will give you one warning, Soft. The Vorthok Empire is growing every day. Soon we will need more worlds for our people. If any of those worlds happen to have humans on them, we will not waste time with talking. Yuna nodded slowly and made one final note on her tablet. Thank you for making your position so clear, General. I will make sure my government knows exactly where the Vorthok Empire stands. Keep telling yourself that your way is better when my war fleets fill your skies, Korthak said with a sneer before sitting back down. The meeting continued, but everyone could feel that something important had just changed. 3 weeks after the terrible meeting at the Galactic Council, Admiral Kim Gi-won stood in the control room of Earth Defense Station Alpha. His face was hard as stone while he watched the emergency news reports coming from the Kepler 442 star system. The big screens around him showed Vorthok warships floating in space above New Seoul, which was one of humanity's farming colonies. Sir, said Lieutenant Choi Dae-ho, his voice shaking with anger, we have confirmed that people are dead. The Vorthoks are showing the killings to the whole galaxy on live television. The videos were horrible to watch. Vorthok soldiers were pulling human farmers out of their houses by force. Small children were crying and screaming as they watched. Their mothers and fathers get pushed into long lines. The worst part was when General Korthak himself appeared on the screen, holding up the cut-off head of Colony Administrator Oh Soo-min, a good man who had helped the farming community grow food for thousands of people. Look at what happens to weak people. Korthak shouted at the camera, his scaled face twisted with evil joy. Let everyone in the galaxy see what we do to those who choose peace instead of power. Admiral Kim Gi-won's hands gripped the metal rail in front of him so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Behind him, all his officers stood perfectly still and quiet, but he could feel their anger like heat from a fire. These men and women had spent their whole careers training for a moment like this. But as the years went by, they had started to think it would never actually happen. Suddenly, the special communication system made crackling sounds as it came to life. President Han Minja's face appeared on the main screen. His expression looked like it had been cut from cold stone, showing no emotion but great determination. Admiral Kim, the president said in a quiet but strong voice, the Colonial Protection Act is now working. You have complete permission to do whatever is necessary. Admiral Ji-won nodded his head slowly, understanding exactly what this meant. Mr. President, should I send the message to our other secret forces? All of them, Admiral. Project Silent Guardian is now active. The Accord of Restraint is stopped for as long as needed. The Accord of Restraint was a secret agreement that humans had made with themselves many years ago. It meant that Earth would hide its real military power and only show the galaxy a small, peaceful force. But now, after seeing innocent people murdered, that agreement was over. Across the entire solar system, things that had been sleeping for many years suddenly woke up, on hidden military bases that no one knew existed. Old computer systems started humming with power after decades of silence. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, what looked like simple mining stations began to change. Their outer shells fell away like snakeskin, showing the deadly weapon platforms hidden underneath. On Luna, Earth's moon, huge metal doors started to open for the first time in 50 years. The doors were so big that they had been disguised as natural craters. Now they revealed massive underground hangars filled with ships that the galaxy had never seen before. Lieutenant Park Sora, who was working at the communications station, looked up with wide eyes. Admiral, we're getting response signals from all the hidden bases. Station Omega in the Kuiper Belt is online. The weapon platforms in the asteroid field are powered up. The Luna shipyards are opening their launch bays. How many ships? Admiral Kim asked. Sir, the computer is still counting, but it looks like over 3,000 combat vessels are coming online right now. The other officers in the room looked shocked. They had thought Earth's entire military was maybe a few hundred ships. Captain Lee, Hannah, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Admiral, what about the Vorthok fleet at New Seoul? They have 47 warships in orbit around the colony. Admiral Kim turned to look at her, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. But it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been hiding its teeth for too long. Captain Lee, please send a message to Captain Nem Junho on the stealth ship Silent Storm. Tell him it's time to show the Vortex what human technology really looks like. Sir, I thought the Silent Storm was just a research vessel. That's what we wanted everyone to think, the Admiral replied. The truth is, we have been watching and waiting for 40 years. We hoped this day would never come, but we were ready for it. On the main screen, the terrible videos from New Seoul continued to play. General Korthak was walking among the human prisoners, choosing who would die next. He was enjoying every moment of fear and pain he was causing. Sir, Lieutenant Choi said quietly, the President is waiting for your confirmation. Admiral Kim looked around the room at all his officers. These people had served with honor and patience for many years, always knowing they might someday have to fight, but hoping they never would. Now that day had come. Tell the President that Earth Defense Command is ready, he said in a clear, strong voice, and send a message to all our hidden forces. Operation Gentle Thunder is now beginning. The Vortex wanted to see what happens when humans stop being peaceful. They're about to find out. General Korthak stood on the control deck of his biggest warship, looking down at the burning human colony with great satisfaction. The flames from destroyed buildings made orange and red lights dance across his green scales. His computer screen showed 17 more human worlds that he planned to attack and take over. The humans had not sent any message back after his demands for surrender, which proved to him that they were too scared to fight. General, called out the Vorthok soldier who watched the sensor equipment, I am seeing some strange readings at the edge of this star system. What kind of strange? Korthak asked, without much interest, still enjoying the view of the burning colony. I am not sure, sir. The sensors keep telling me there is nothing but empty space out there, but the gravity readings say there are very big objects. Korthak made an angry growling sound in his throat. Those are just mistakes from the human sensor equipment. Their technology is old and weak compared to ours. But then something happened that changed everything. The first human ship appeared. Out of nowhere, it showed itself just 2 kilometers away from the right side of their ship. The vessel was smooth and deadly looking, like a giant space shark. Its black surface seemed to eat up all the light around it, making it look like a hole cut out of space itself. Then another ship appeared, and another one. Within just a few seconds, the entire Vorthok fleet found itself completely surrounded by ships that should not have existed. This cannot be possible, Korthak said in a whisper, his yellow eyes wide with shock. Our spy reports told us that humans had no real military fleet at all. Suddenly, a human voice came through all the Vorthok communication systems at the same time. General Korthak, this is Captain Seojayan of the human spaceship Silent Fury. You said you wanted to see human strength. We are happy to show it to you. The human ships began to move like a pack of hunting wolves that had found their prey. They moved together with perfect timing, as if they could read each other's thoughts. Their weapons were technologies that the Vortex had only read about in science theory books, things that were supposed to be impossible to build. These weapons cut through the Vorthek protective shields, like they were made of thin paper instead of energy fields. The mighty Vorthok battleships, which had made entire star systems shake with fear, started to explode in huge flashes of bright light. Each explosion lit up space like a small sun being born and dying in seconds. General Korthak grabbed onto his command chair as his flagship shook from weapons fire. "How many ships do they have?" he shouted. "Sir, the computers cannot count them all. They keep appearing from nowhere. At least 200, maybe more." 200? That is impossible. Where were they hiding? His tactical officer, a young Vorthok named Grixtel, looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "General, I think they were never hiding. I think they were always there, but we could not see them." Down on the surface of New Sol, Major Yoon Hyeri was leading a rescue mission to save the human colonists. The Vorthok soldiers who had been killing innocent people just minutes before were now running and hiding as humans came out of special drop pods that had been invisible until they opened. The colonists, who had thought they were going to die, watched in amazement as their rescuers moved with deadly skill and perfect control. Every shot the human soldiers fired hit exactly where they aimed. Every step they took was planned and purposeful. A group of Vorthok soldiers had been holding 20 human families as prisoners near the main farming building. When Major Hyeri and her team arrived, the aliens were using the colonists as human shields. "Stay back or we kill them all," shouted the Vorthok. Squad leader Major Hyeri did not even slow down. She made a small hand signal to her team. In less than 3 seconds, all 8 Vorthok soldiers were on the ground, and not one human colonist had been hurt. One of the rescued farmers, an old man named Kim Soo-jin, stared at Major Hyeri with wonder. "How did you get here so fast?" "We sent a help message only 6 hours ago. Sir, we have been watching and waiting for a very long time," she replied while her soldiers checked the area for more enemies. A wounded Vorthok soldier crawled over to her, leaving a trail of green blood on the ground. He spoke in broken Galactic Standard, the common language used between different species. "Please," he begged, "we give up. We surrender." Major Hyeri looked down at him with cold, hard eyes. Behind her, she could hear the happy cries of children being reunited with their parents, and the sad weeping of those who had lost family members to Vorthok cruelty. "You should have thought about surrender before you decided to hurt our people," she said in a voice as cold as space itself, in orbit above them. The last of the Vorthok warships was breaking apart, its pieces floating away into the darkness. Between stars, the Galactic Council met in an emergency meeting as scary reports came in from every corner of the galaxy. The Vorthok Empire, which had controlled 18 different star systems just a few days ago, no longer existed at all. Council Chairman Veltar sat in his ancient chair, watching the big computer screens that showed what was happening across space. His old hands shook slightly as he read the reports. Every single Vorthok military base had been completely destroyed in just 72 hours. Their huge fleet of warships, which used to have thousands of vessels, was now nothing but floating pieces of metal and debris drifting in space. "How is this possible?" whispered the Aquarian delegate, her fish-like gills opening and closing rapidly with fear. "Our spy reports told us that humans only had maybe 100 warships at most." The answer came from Fleet Admiral Lim Sung-ho, who appeared in the council chamber as a 3-dimensional image created by quantum fold transmission technology. This was another piece of advanced science that the galaxy did not know humans could use. "Respected members of the council," Admiral Lim said, his voice sounding like it carried the wisdom of many centuries. "For the past 200 years, humanity has followed something called the Accord of Restraint. We made a choice to keep our military power hidden and limit how much we got involved in galactic wars and conflicts. But you had no other choice," argued the crystal-like representative from Nexar, his natural light flickering with confusion. "Your technology was not advanced enough to our technology was hidden on purpose," Admiral Lim said, cutting off the Nexari delegate's words. "We learned a very long time ago that when you show too much strength, it makes other people afraid, and when people are afraid, they start fights and wars. So we decided to look weak on the outside while becoming very strong on the inside." Council Chairman Veltar moved forward in his seat, his ancient eyes filled with shock and anger. "Are you telling us that you have been lying to this council for 200 years? We have been protecting the galaxy from destroying itself," Ambassador Lee Yuna said, as she joined the emergency meeting. "The human way of fighting has always been simple. Use overwhelming force with perfect accuracy. We did not want to become the galaxy's police force, or the people who control everyone else. But what about the Vortex and what they did? The Vortex made a very serious mistake," said Admiral Kim Juan, whose image appeared as a hologram transmitted from his command ship somewhere in space. "They thought that our choice to be peaceful meant we could not fight back. They attacked innocent civilians. They forced us to show our true power. All around the galaxy, other violent and aggressive species were learning the same terrible truth about humanity. Space pirates, who had been stealing and killing for years without any punishment, suddenly found their secret bases under attack by ships that seemed to appear out of thin air. Slave traders who bought and sold people like animals watched their evil businesses fall apart as human special forces soldiers attacked them. These soldiers had been like ghost stories that people whispered about. But now everyone knew they were real. The Helix Cartel, a group of criminals who controlled illegal drug trade across 12 systems, sent out a desperate message to all their ships: avoid all human vessels. Repeat, avoid all human vessels. They are not what we thought they were." On the mining world of Kepler 438b, the Brutarian warlords who had been enslaving the local population for 30 years woke up to find human soldiers already inside their fortress. The warlords had thought their mountain stronghold was impossible to attack, but the humans had somehow walked through their walls like ghosts. "Please, we can make a deal," begged Warlord Thakmer as he knelt before Major Jung Seokman, the leader of the human rescue team. "The time for deals ended when you put chains on innocent people," Major Jung replied coldly. Back in the council chambers, Chairman Veltar was trying to understand the full scope of what was happening. "How many ships do you actually have?" he asked. Admiral Lim smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Enough. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you need," Ambassador Yuna said firmly. "For 2 centuries, we have tried to show the galaxy that different species can live together in peace. We have offered friendship, trade, and cooperation to anyone who wanted it." The crystalline delegate from Nexer dimmed his natural light until he was barely visible. "And now the galaxy has seen what happens when someone hurts innocent people," Admiral Kim said from his hologram. "We did not want to be feared. We wanted to be friends. But if fear is the only thing that stops evil, then we will use fear." The room became very quiet. Even the sound of the air circulation system seemed too loud. "The old galaxy is gone," Admiral Lim announced. "A new one begins today. And in this new galaxy, those who hurt the innocent will face consequences they cannot imagine." Outside the council chambers, across thousands of star systems, the message was spreading. Humanity was no longer hiding. 6 months after the destruction of the Vorthok Empire, Ambassador Lee Yuna walked into the Galactic Council chamber once again, but everything felt different now. The room was much quieter than before, and all the other delegates looked at her with respect and maybe a little bit of fear. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about what humans could do when someone pushed them too far. "The human delegation wants to make our position very clear to everyone," she began, her voice carrying easily across the silent chamber. "We did not want to show our real military power. We were forced to act only because innocent lives were in danger." She pointed to the big screen that showed peaceful star systems, where different species lived together without fighting. "For 200 years, we have always chosen to talk instead of fight, to work together instead of conquer others. This is still what we prefer to do." President Song Maray appeared as a 3-dimensional image in the chamber, using the quantum communication technology that still amazed many of the other species. "However," she said in a firm voice, We will no longer allow anyone to hurt innocent people, whether they are human or from any other species. The Accord of Restraint did its job for a long time, but the galaxy has proven that it cannot keep peace by itself. Fleet Admiral Lim Sung-ho's image appeared next to the president. Human military forces will now work under something called the Colonial Protection Doctrine. Any species that threatens civilian populations will face an immediate response from us. The meaning was very clear to everyone in the room. Several council members who had supported aggressive wars and expansion in the past were now thinking very carefully about changing their positions. Council Chairman Veltar, who had lived long enough to see many civilizations rise and fall, spoke. Very slowly and carefully. Ambassador Yuna, are you telling us that humanity will now act as the protector of the entire galaxy? We are saying we will act like ourselves, Yuna replied with a steady voice. We are a species that thinks life is more important than conquest, and peace is more important than power. But we are also a species that will fight to defend those beliefs. Captain Park Jinwoo, who had just returned from fighting in the campaign against the Vorthax, stepped forward. His uniform was clean and pressed, but his eyes showed the hard experience of recent battles. The galaxy spent hundreds of years making fun of human restraint. You called us weak, cowardly, and pathetic. You never asked an important question. Why would a species that could travel between stars choose diplomacy instead of domination? Now you know the answer, Admiral Kim Ji-won added, his voice coming through the communication system from his command ship. Our restraint was not weakness, it was mercy. And mercy is a choice we make every single day. The silence in the chamber was complete, even the usual background sounds of the building's systems seemed to have stopped. The Aquarian delegate raised one of her fin-like hands. What if some species cannot change their aggressive ways? What if violence is part of their nature? Ambassador Yuna looked at her with understanding, but firm eyes. Then they will learn to control that nature, or they will face the consequences. We have tried for 2 centuries to show that there is a better way to live. Some listened. Others, like the Vortex, chose to mock us and hurt innocent people, and those who chose mockery and violence no longer exist. President Song added quietly. The crystalline delegate from Nexar, who had been almost invisible with his dimmed light, suddenly became brighter. What about species that want to change? What about those who have made mistakes in the past but want to do better? We have always believed in second chances, Yuna replied with a small smile. But there will be no third chances for those who hurt the innocent. When it came time to vote, the decision was unanimous. Every single member of the Galactic Council formally recognized Earth's new role in keeping peace across the galaxy. As the meeting ended, species across thousands of star systems began to think differently about what strength and weakness really meant. Later that day, in her private office, Ambassador Yuna wrote her final report to send back to Earth. Her fingers moved slowly across the keyboard as she chose her words carefully. They wanted to see our true nature, she wrote. They discovered that our greatest strength was choosing not to use our full power. Now they understand the difference between those who are weak and those who choose restraint. The galaxy is safer for everyone now, because they finally learned to fear the gentle. She paused and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling quietly, making sure that no one else would suffer like the colonists of New Sol had suffered. We never wanted to be the galaxy's guardians, she continued typing. We wanted to be their friends. But if being guardians is what it takes to protect the innocent, then that is what we will be. The message was sent across the quantum communication network, reaching Earth in minutes. Across the galaxy, a new age of peace was beginning, protected by those who had learned that sometimes the gentlest people make the most dangerous enemies.